All right, you have Randy Blount here. I'm with Mike Smith of Seiko Engineering. We're talking about geotechnical services and how, as a contractor, how we partner. What are the benefits of it? Maybe even the good and the bad over the years. So we've lucked out where we've been able to work together for first job.
Yeah, that's right.
It was just over 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
So. And before that, at your previous employer, we got to work together some too. Do some fun stuff with thermal conductivity, just a lot of cool projects. So just tell me maybe a little bit about, from your standpoint, how have you seen contractors leverage that relationship with a geotechnical firm?
Yeah, definitely. I've always looked at my role as a civil engineer on the projects I work on is I have to be able to facilitate sometimes just getting the job built.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we run into problems where between the design and the construction contract and the schedule and what we find underground, the job is almost dead in the water.
Yeah.
And it can be for other things other than geotechnical or materials testing, but I look at what my opportunity is I like being able to facilitate whatever technical solution might be needed to get through an impasse, whether that be during the design phase, when we're maybe working on an alternative project delivery project where there's only so much money to go into the project, and so the owner and the contractor are trying to evaluate different ways to build something that can save some money as they work through the pricing aspects of the job. But it's also it just comes down to when the earth starts being moved, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes we find things underground that we weren't expecting to find there.
Yeah.
In the worst case, they can end up in litigation, but it's also an opportunity if you have the right people on the project to work through a solution and get the project built.
Yeah.
There's often a technical solution to whatever we come across on the job site, and sometimes it's related specifically to the underground elements of the work.
What's interesting is, like, really in construction, every problem is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to, in this case with a geotechnical firm, it's an opportunity to leverage your relationship, find a solution, and if you do that, both the geotechnical firm and the contractor usually look good in the eyes of the owner and are able to find a solution much quicker than if you end up at odds, right?
Yes.
So, hey, we're struggling to get compaction. This becoming adversarial, this relationship between quality control or quality assurance and the contractor, I mean, I've almost never seen that be successful.
Right.
Like, the way to be successful is to recognize, all right, we have a problem here. How do we come together as a team? How do we find a solution? How do we understand the problem? Don't just assume it's, well, I'm the contractor, I'm doing something wrong from a geotechnical side. And from the contractor side, don't just assume, well, they're obviously not testing right. They don't know what they're doing. I've been doing this for 50 years. Who is this 20-year-old to tell me how to do this?
Oh yeah, and I would say, like, as a general contractor, as you're trying to identify projects you want to work on, and maybe it's with a new owner, what are going to be the kind of rules of engagement when we get to construction? Am I, the contractor, going to be able to hire my own testing company to work for me? Or does the owner of the project already have somebody and I'm going to be kind of stuck with them, right? Which could be good or bad.
Yeah.
But then we have dealt with a lot of projects where you've got one company doing testing for the owner, usually a quality assurance company, and then another entity working for the contractor doing what we traditionally call quality control testing.
Yeah.
And on those projects, it can be very challenging to get both of those entities to come up with comparable test results, mainly because we're doing different tests. Even though we're testing the same material, there's a lot of variability to how these tests are done that can lead to conflicts during construction. And those conflicts can shut a project down, literally, until those two entities, the two testing companies, the two geotechnical testing companies, can reach consensus on maybe why one company was doing a test incorrectly and the other one was, or maybe they both were doing some aspects of the test wrong. So you have to, hopefully you're working with an owner that sees the benefit of just working through those issues, as opposed to, I've been involved in some projects where the owner is just taking the approach, well, you know, our numbers are what they are. You, the contractor, you have to get comparable results or you can't continue.
Yeah.
But also we've worked with owners who look at it like, okay, we want both entities to basically get in a room together and you guys figure out why you can't get the same test results. So again, like Randy said, that's an opportunity for us, as long as we're being open-minded and trying to share ideas, because even though a lot of these tests are standardized methods that are recognized by the agency or even the federal government in some instances, all the testing companies have little nuances they do differently with these that can lead to just little differences in the procedures, and all of a sudden one company is getting passing test results and the other isn't.
Yeah. So
when you have a relationship with everybody, you can have a better shot at working through those things. That's kind of what I've seen.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I think maybe later today we can actually dive into some of those examples a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, also one of the things I'm thinking is, so here I am, I'm a contractor, and instead of viewing the geotechnical, whether it's on the design side or the quality control side, the construction testing side, instead of viewing you as, you know, kind of a commodity, well, it's whoever's low on bid day, it's the guy who wrote the report, but developing a relationship. During the estimating side of things, when you have a relationship, in the past we've called and said, hey, we have this soils report of yours, can you help us understand what this means? Or we have this other company's soils report and we have some confusion on it, we want some input. Now, obviously that's what we would call in construction free con. I mean, you're not getting paid for a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you view that? Like, are you guys okay with it? Do you think that there's value from a geotechnical side of things? Do you mind doing it, or is it maybe just some insight?
Yeah, no, we often get approached by our clients about just providing our opinion on other things that they might be working on.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that we, as a consulting engineer, that kind of comes with trying to be successful, you know, because I believe ultimately whatever you do for people, you know, it's going to come back to you in some way. You know, I think some people get hung up on everything I got to do, I got to charge for. Well, that works, you know, you can make some money in the short term with that being your philosophy. But when you're trying to build a practice, you know, like we know we have to be able to participate and help contractors out. And, you know, sometimes that means we're reviewing one of our competitors' soils reports or geotech reports, and being able to help a contractor through, you know, how you would approach building it or trying to put a price together for it, given this information from somebody else. And so I've always looked at that like that's just something that we need to do. I mean, this is what we do for a living. We test soils and concrete and asphalt. So I feel like if I can be of service to somebody that is at least going to appreciate it, you know, we'll do everything we can there to try to help out.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I think as a contractor, so often we're doing the same thing. You know, now there are some contractors out there who, hey, we are just what we call hard bid or rip and read. You know, it's not that much about relationship, and that's fine. But there's also a lot of contractors throughout America who are more relationship based, trying to provide a solution.
Yeah.
And so when we find a geotechnical firm that's willing to partner with us, like you said, I think it does come back. Where when something comes up, there's an opportunity. It's easy to say, hey, we have a relationship. These guys have been good to us. Maybe they're not the lowest on this job, but we know we can trust them, and we know we can have a conversation about their pricing and their approach and really come up with the right number. And maybe that even kind of segues into why having a partnership is important from an estimating standpoint is not only getting value out of an opinion, but even just if you are bidding a job on bid day, to be able to call up somebody and have a conversation. Hey, I'm getting all these numbers that they're all over the board. You're kind of in the middle, but help me understand how are you pricing this? We were talking kind of off camera.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it seems like there's always somebody who's pricing bare minimum amount of tests in the perfect scenario, you know, ideal conditions, which generally doesn't happen. And so having a relationship helps you to kind of flush that out so that you're not into a project and don't have enough money for quality control, which is a bad place to be as a contractor.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it affects both the design stage of the project as well as the construction of the project, because not all geotechnical engineers have the same approach to how much information they need to be able to develop recommendations for the design. So if you have an opportunity to put together a scope and a fee, and you're in my position and you're afraid you're going to lose the project because somebody else isn't going to do enough of the testing and the subsurface investigation, you got to make that decision of, well, I know that this client of mine, all they care about is the price. Do I want to do what I know my competitors might do on this project, or really tell our client, this is what I think you need to do? Yeah. And that's a tough place to be sometimes, because some of our competitors in the geotechnical field, they really don't do enough testing and borings to be able to come up with the best recommendations for a site. And the same thing happens during the construction phase, where again, if it's a hard bid type of project and we have to come up with a scope and fee for doing all those tests on the soils, concrete, asphalt, and everything else, we have to decide, look, do we want to kind of give somebody a price knowing that this is probably going to happen, even though I might be pricing a job for Randy's company and he tells me, oh, it's going to take 6 months to do it, and I know full well it's going to take 9. Well, I can't give him a price based on the 9 months because he told me it was going to take 6. Yeah. So when we get into construction, the companies that do what we do, and that's the quality assurance and quality control, we don't control the schedule.
Yeah.
We're basically along for the ride. If that contractor took 4 months to do a certain task, we had to be out there to cover certain things during that time period. So there's a lot of variability to pricing what we do, both geotechnically and on the construction phase. A lot of contractors have told me, we don't even really use your number. We just get numbers and then we plug our own based on our experience.
Yeah.
And that's how they make their selections, because you could literally get pricing on a project for testing services that range from $10,000 to $100,000.
Oh my
like,
God.
how do you sort through which one? And then as a general contractor, you're like, well, let's use the $10,000 bid because we the general contractor want to get the project too. So there's just so many variables to pricing those things.
And so, but what I think is interesting is, as you're talking about that, what I'm hearing is partnership is just key, because that relationship for one of my estimators reaches out, tells you guys this is how long it takes. If there's not relationship there, you're not going to call that estimator or that principal and say, hey, we're getting a request for a bid and it's 6 months, but I'm telling you, I've done 5 projects like this. There's just no way. It's going to be 9 to 12 months based off our experience. So is there something else that we don't know? Do you guys have a different approach? Let's talk about it. Like, without that relationship, you know, we're working in a vacuum and we're really probably going to hurt ourselves, right?
The risk is higher.
Yeah. So we maybe don't understand that project as well, or just from a cost standpoint, we're not carrying the amount of money we should for your services. So I think that's why, you know, the idea behind this discussion is to help contractors, geotechnical firms to understand, find a way to develop relationships. So often we worry about just the relationships with our clients, but our vendors and our trade partners are just as valuable. And in this case, if you're moving dirt, if you're installing pipe, asphalt, concrete, this should be a key relationship that you should be fostering, facilitating on a regular basis with one or two firms, so that you have, some strong help on these types of issues.
Yeah, and it's just like the decisions that, we're a business just like any other. It's just we're in an engineering business. We have to kind of choose our time wisely where we want to spend it. And that's something when it comes to estimating. I can't really give proposals for everything I get asked to provide a number on. I would be doing, that'd be all my time.
Yeah.
And there's some projects, frankly, we just don't have an expertise in them, and we don't want to do them. So just like with what you do with your company, there's just certain areas that when you know something's coming out, you pay extra attention and kind of make that a target project that you want to get. And it takes years to build those relationships with people, to where you can have these kind of conversations and hopefully be as beneficial to them as they are to your business.
Yeah, and I think on the Build with Leaders platform, we're talking about these tests, we're talking about geotechnical services, but that gives you a good foundation. Mm-hmm. I mean, ultimately, this relationship allows you to have someone in your market, like you said, who's specialized. So we're going to teach you a lot of the basics, but fostering this partnership, this relationship, is really what contractors need to do in their individual markets. And many contractors operate in multiple markets. So to your point, mm-hmm. they may have one or two key partners in the geotechnical services in each location, because it varies a little bit, and not all labs have, multi-state offices or have a presence in your market.
Yeah, so that's exactly right.
I think I would just challenge contractors to build a relationship, find a partner, and foster that relationship. And both companies, in my opinion, would be the better for it.
Oh yeah, and hopefully that's what people who use this site will get, because I've always felt like the best contractors that I've worked with, they know what everybody on their job site is doing. They know what their role is, because it makes you a better general contractor. If you know what the testing company is coming out there to do and can be a part of that and be knowledgeable about it, just like any other trade or subcontractor that comes onto the site, it makes you better at your job. And can, I always tell folks, like, our scope, our fee for the construction testing on a project, it might be as little as 0.5% of the construction cost.
Yeah.
So we're often the last person decided, and sometimes it's, oh, did anybody remember to hire the testing company? Oh, I thought it's starting tomorrow. Can you get somebody out here, right? There's so many bigger pieces to a project, but our testing can kill a job sometimes if it's not done correctly. So it's a small part of a project, but it can really have a big ramification on the production and therefore profitability of a project as well.
Awesome.
And we've seen that,
Yeah, thank you.